Welcome to the Ascend Your Success podcast. Whether you're just starting out or are a veteran looking to grow your business, you're in the right place. Join us to learn how to achieve financial freedom while working and living life on your own terms. Hear valuable insights, strategies, and interviews with successful entrepreneurs. Get ready to achieve the success you've always dreamed of. Ready? Let's go.
What's going on, guys? My name is Wyatt Reed, and this is the Ascend Your Success podcast. And today, I get to interview my friend Jeremy Schooler. And we just recently met over a phone call. We got connected with a mutual friend of ours, and we got to talking about how he was doing his business and how I was doing my business. And I was like, man, this would be a great conversation to have over a podcast. So thanks so much, man, for being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and pre-real estate Jeremy.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Thanks for having me. And yeah, super cool. Kind of a neat introduction to each other, and then take it off pretty quickly. So, yeah, dude. So I started in construction right out of high school. I was a construction guy, doing all kinds of various stuff for about a decade or so. I got saved, actually. It kind of changed my whole world. And 3 years later, I ended up full-time on staff for the church that I was going to. They had a need for some practical stuff. So I ended up for a decade of construction, full-time, went into ministry vocationally, part-time, which transferred into full-time ministry for about a decade, and construction on the side the whole time. And then about 5 years ago, kind of started taking back off into the construction a little bit more, started a contracting business again, and then pretty quickly the conversation of real estate started to come up. It was always a thing when you're in construction, especially young. It's like, man, we could do this, we could buy a house and flip a house, and like, but we had no idea what we were talking about, right? And it never manifested into anything. It was just a couple of idiots talking about stuff, then when I went back out as a contractor again, though, it was like that was an obvious conversation again. And I had a buddy that was already doing real estate, so I started talking to him. And another guy who had, he's actually retired doctor, surgeon, who I was good friends with at the time. He had done real estate like before medical school. We're talking like back in the 70s kind of thing. He had held several rentals, and it was actually, he was making a good living doing it, but getting into medical school, they kind of challenged him, said, dude, like, you can't do both. You got to pick one. And so he did and went the medical route. And he ultimately ended up encouraging me to step out there and go get into this thing. And we ended up kind of partnering together there in the beginning, and started the real estate business, and then ended up partnering, the first flip I did, partnering with that guy who was already in it kind of thing, and kind of just snowballed from there over the last 4 or 5 years now growing this business. So,
Dude, that's so funny, because I literally, like 2 episodes ago, I just interviewed this one of my students who had a construction background too, and he found a guy that got into it with him, and that's how he got his first deal too. So that's actually really, really interesting, but it's also like awesome that you already had that background in construction, because that's one of the biggest issues we run into when we're flipping, is finding people who know what they're talking about, show up when they're supposed to show up, and do what they say they're going to do, right? So
yep.
I'm sure that background probably helps you out quite a bit, doing flips and stuff.
Sure. Even today, when I talk to a potential client or whatever, I usually bring that up, that I'm a contractor background and whatnot, and I tell them, it's like, hey, it's no superhero, no magic here, but I can kind of X-ray see right through the walls and what's going on in your house. Like I can walk in and get a pretty good feel, pretty easily, pretty quickly, and pretty quickly judge about how much it's going to cost me to rehab that house just off the top of my head, just from that experience and knowing what I'm getting into. So
absolutely. So how did you find that first deal? How'd you go about making that decision? I'm going to do this. And how did you get that first deal?
Well, that buddy that he's still a very good friend of mine today. He came along with it and came at me as we were just kind of starting to get into the real estate thing. So I was still a contractor and really kind of focused on that part. So he came at me just a partner 50-50. He got the deal. He actually found it on the MLS, which is always if you can find one that's going to work and make the numbers work there, you're doing pretty good. So, and so he had found it on the MLS, made an offer. They took it. He was quick on it and got in it. So, we went 50-50. He just supplied funding for it, and I supplied all the work for it. And a couple of months later, we were able to sell it, and both actually did pretty good on it for a first deal. So that was rad. So.
Dude, that's awesome.
So that was the first step into it, and that kind of springboarded us into, okay, now let's start figuring out how to do this for ourselves and find deals ourselves and whatnot.
Yeah,
So.
that's actually what I was going to ask you. So, you got your first deal, you done it, you made money on it. That's awesome. Like, now what does that look like now that you figured it out? You've like got those limiting beliefs, those self doubts and stuff like that. They're off your shoulders now. I can do this. So, what
Sure.
did that look like moving forward? Did you just automatically jump into doing some marketing? Did you hire somebody to teach you? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, dude, if I could make any recommendation to anybody, it'd be do some of those things you just said, because I didn't. We started putting word of mouth out there. We started a website. We started doing some of that, but I didn't have any clue as to what I was doing as far as those things go. So word of mouth has been huge for us. The next real deal that we got was a word of mouth deal. And it would have been a really good deal. I learned a lot of lessons on that one because that was my first one, like truly by myself. At the same time, the idea was always, okay, we'll start Momentum Investment Group, the real estate business, and I'm already a contractor, residential building services, and so the one will just hire the contractor to do all the work, and it'll be a great marriage of two companies kind of thing. The hard part is I have found it very difficult to replace myself on the job site, and trying to get a crew going and keep them going without me being there all the time, even if I'm finding somebody who's halfway decent builder to be kind of fill in that role. That's a pretty unique role, somebody who can run the company and lead the crew and truly be a leader in that way, and have the skill set to be able to make the call on the fly without constantly feeling like they need to go back to the boss, So, long story short, that one we did not do very good on. um, we ate it on that one pretty hard, and that was a lot of lessons. And I'm thankful for the lessons though, because they've been foundational in a lot of ways. We built a great house. That was a flip, and we did everything. I mean, from the crawl space to the attic, new insulation, we dug into everything on this place, and and we could have went quite a bit lighter. We just overbuilt it on top of trying to build a crew at the same time and get this crew really stabilized. So that was costing us a little extra. And we knew we might not do great on this one, but we went too far on that one, and so, but we had the capital at the time to be able to sustain that, and so we knew it, and it ultimately ended up working out in the end. But that would have been for somebody starting out that didn't have that background capital there, that would have been a killer for them for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so unfortunately we were able to sustain that. But
One thing that I tell my guys all the time is like, because they'll walk in, especially new guys, they'll walk in, they'll be like, oh, we can do this and that, and I would do, and they look at it as if they were going to live there. And one thing that I really, really stress to them to do is to go on the MLS, go on Zillow, find houses that have sold in the past 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and look at the renovations that they done. And don't recreate the wheel. Like, do what these guys done because it worked, right? They flipped it for whatever they done to it. And so that's one thing that I tell them. Hey, don't go in there looking at, oh well, if I lived here, I would do this. Go in there and do what it takes to sell it and move on, right?
Yep.
So how long ago was that?
That first one would have been started that one in 2021, I guess. So, and sold it there late that year, I think.
Yeah, so not too long ago, but I'm sure it feels like it's been forever.
Yeah. We've moved on since then,
So how does in those 3 years, how does the business transform, or are you doing the same thing, or have you pivoted and done different things? Like, what does that look like now?
Yeah, so kind of basically doing the same thing as far as marketing goes, and just doing it better, I'd say, and learning that way. One of the biggest things I think I've had to learn for myself is the business is the business. It is its own entity, and treating it that way, and treating it like a business rather than like my little baby or child or something personal to me. I mean, it's your business, and obviously that's personal, but you got to learn to treat it like it's its own entity and build it as such kind of thing, so that it can be self-sustaining and existing in its own way, and not be something that is trying to kill you and suck
Yeah.
the life out of you, right? So, but now SEO is huge for us. Website, the leads that come through SEO are by far was SEO and word of mouth are the two biggest and best leads for us. So we're pretty highly focused on that. And then I'm learning more about cold calling right now. Actually, I'm going through a cold calling campaign and working hard. That's how you and I met, is talking with Nick there, and learning through that, growing through that. That's challenging me to be like, okay, and set some real clear parameters with the business. Is like, okay, when do we call this successful? What does success look like? And how do we when's the point that we cut it, and when's the point that we say, okay, this is doing okay, we can work with this and start adjusting to make it better. And so
Yeah.
well, yeah, that's the
You're always learning. You're always like, I always tell people, you've got to be open-minded. You've got to be able to pivot with things that pop up. You got to be a problem solver, right? And so it's awesome that, you're 3-4 years in, and you're still learning about new marketing channels and testing out, like tracking your KPIs. We were talking about KPIs for those of you that are listening that are new. They stand for key performance indicators. So like, how much money did I spend on marketing? How many leads did I get? How many appointments did I get? How many, closed deals did I get? How
yep,
much money did I make? Then truly, okay, well then I should be able to spend this much money and get this many deals, right? And so it's very, very important, no matter what you're doing, texting, cold calling, even the free lead sources like talking to wholesalers. How many wholesalers did I have to talk to get a deal, right?
yep,
So like you should always be tracking those numbers, and just like what you said, if it's track it for 3 months, because 3 months will give you a trend, right?
yep,
And at the end of 3 months, if you made money, cool. Can we amp it up, or are you happy with that? If you didn't make money, let's cut it and try something else, right? It's
yeah,
always that process,
for sure,
until you get where you want to be, right? And then
yep.
sometimes it's still that process. Um,
And if you don't set parameters like that up front too, you can really shoot yourself in the foot, because it's like, well, you didn't stick it out. You didn't follow through with it. And sure, I mean, any marketing channel, it takes work to make it start doing something. And so if all of a sudden you're like 2 weeks in, or even just a month in, and you're like, yeah, this isn't working, and you just cut it, and you're on to the next thing that sounds like it's going to be the best, it's the shiny object syndrome, and you kind of shoot yourself in the foot. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that cold calling campaign that I've been nurturing that lead from that couple of weeks or month, it all of a sudden came through with something 6 months down the road, or whatever, and you're going, man, if I would have kept it going, and so you can kind of miss out on without following through on there, and
Yeah, 100%. And so like I was actually just talking about this with one of my guys, and he was like, "Man, I spent all this money on marketing and I didn't get anything." And like I was like, "Okay, well, tell me tell me your KPIs." And he didn't really have good KPIs, but I was like, you spent a lot of money. You should have at least got something, And so I was like, "Well, let's talk about your markets. Like, where are you marketing?" And come to find out, he spent a lot of money over the course of I think it was 6 months, but he stretched it out so paper thin. Like he stretched it out over two different
sure,
counties and a couple other cities added into it. And it's like, oh well, there's your problem. You stretched it out so paper thin that you're not
yeah,
actually hitting the KPIs that you're supposed to, because it's stretched out. So you always got to track it, not only the marketing channel, but the market that you're in as well. Like make
yeah,
sure you're not tracking it as a big one campaign. It needs to be across the markets that you're in, right?
yeah,
So that's a little bit in the weeds, but most of the people that are listening to this are brand spanking new. They're trying to figure out how to get into real estate, or if they're cut
sure.
out for it, or things like that. So, what are some advice like you wish you would have known like now, that you could go back and talk to your old self, and give them some
Yeah,
advice, and say, man, I wish I would have known this beforehand.
yep. Couple of things I'll throw out there, from just entrepreneurial standpoint, I guess, or just in general, not even real estate specific, any business you're looking, there's an entrepreneurship. My coach will say it's one of the best personal development programs there are. It is the best personal development program, is what he'll say, and because it is going to cause you. At the end of the day, if there's failure, or if there's challenges, or there's anything going on that isn't working or is working, it all falls on you, and you got to go be able to go look in the mirror and deal with that yourself. And so using that to springboard back in, so you got to figure out who you are and what it is that fills your cup at the end of the day, because that was something for me personally. This actually just about a year ago, sitting down and just realizing, you know what, real estate, I am not passionate about real estate. I don't wake up in the morning like I love real estate. I know there's people out there, apparently they exist, that at least they say they do on their social medias and all that, that it's like they just love real estate and it's all real estate. That doesn't fill my cup, is bottom line. For me, and it's a very personal thing for each person, and this is, you do some work to dig into it. For me though, it's mentoring, it's coaching, it's working with people, and helping people kind of take that next step, whatever it is. And so I've learned to build my whole business now totally focused on getting in front of another person and being able to help another person and mentor that person. And so clients that come to me, I let them know. I tell them that. I tell them exactly what I just told you here is, I'm here to help. Like, seriously, I do not mind if you give me a call asking questions. If we put something together that we end up working together, great, but at the end of the day, my cup's going to be filled by just being helpful, and I'll put together enough deals through that process. And so I've learned to just focus the business that way. So I would give that advice to really figure out who you are, what it is that fills your cup, because you don't want to build a business that's going to kill you, and just drive you insane, and you feel like you're just chained to the thing all the time. That's the whole reason you get in the business in the first place, is so that you could build some freedom. But if you build it so it becomes a bigger cage than the one you were in before, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Second, I would say, what I already said, learn to treat the business like it's a business and not just your puppy dog pet project kind of thing. It can be that. There's lots of people that go into business and with their hobby or this or that, but understand there's a difference between a hobby business that you go down to the farmer's market with or whatever, and a true business that it's its own entity that you're building and turning into its own thriving product. And then last, I'd say, if you can get yourself a coach, a mentor, somebody that can really, and I don't mean just your buddy who did something back whenever, but I mean somebody who actually has a clue about business and will start asking you the right question. And it doesn't have to be the real estate business. If anybody who's been in business of any sort, they're going to be able to ask the right kinds of questions and challenge you to think through the right types of things. Just like, KPIs, for instance, you brought that up. KPIs is a common term across all industries. It's not just a real estate industry term, right? And so find somebody who's going to understand what those things mean and be able to ask the questions and be able to look at you and say, is this business doing what you want it to be doing? And how do you adjust for that? And so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people look at me crazy all the time because I tell them the same thing you just told me. It's like, I am not passionate about doing deals and going and looking at properties. I don't care about the transformation of an ugly house to a pretty house. Like a lot of people like that, and it's just like, for me, that's again, like you said, it doesn't fill up my cup. And it's exactly what you said. It's getting with people who are just normal everyday people. Like that guy that I was telling you about, he was a Waffle House manager, and now he quit his job and he's doing real estate full time. Like, you don't understand how much that fires me up that
sure.
That happened. And so, like, that discipleship, like being a part of the church, like all of that stuff is what people, community fills me up. And so that's what it's all about. Success is, I believe, being able to get a good night's sleep, right?
For sure.
So yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And to go along with the mentor thing, like, I always add this in, like, we're not telling you anything that we're not doing ourselves. I've got multiple mentors. I know you've got mentors as well. Yeah. So we'll always be students, and we'll always be in rooms with people who are doing bigger and better things than us, because that's what drives us and fills us up, right?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, let me ask you this: what does it look like? You mentioned helping clients and coaching and stuff. What does it look like to work with you?
Yeah, so whichever way you get in contact with me, whether it's through the website, through social media, or calling directly in. I'm gonna usually just I'm gonna try to set up a meeting pretty quickly and come meet face to face with somebody. And I'm gonna tell them exactly what I just told you. Like, I'm here as a help. Like, tell me what's going on. I always tell them, I can help you sell a house. Like, that's my wife is the real estate agent. I'm the investor. Between the two of us, we offer this hybrid option of just about any option you could think of to sell a property. And so that's the easy part for us. The hard part is we don't know what you need as a client, and so tell me the story, like walk me through it. But yeah, I want to see the house. We'll go do that. We'll walk through the house thing, and we got to get that understanding. But tell me what you need, I'll usually just say something like, if you could wave a magic wand, and just everything lands out perfectly. Tell me what that looks like, and then from there, now I can take my toolbox of abilities and options, and hopefully put together something that can help them out with that, and at least make recommendations to them. Like I said, if we put together something with them, great. But if not, if I can just sit there and do the brainstorming and walk through it with them, they're usually almost always by the time they're calling me, they're usually in some sort of an overwhelmed state, whatever that looks like, and they start looking into how to sell this house, and they probably talk to a real estate agent at some point, and the real estate agent give them like a 3-page list of things they need to do and this and that, and they're feeling like, I just don't know how to handle all this and the decisions and what does this mean and what's that term mean and this and that. And if they've spent some time on Google, they found plenty of information, and they're just on information overload. So usually I'm coming in there and able to just kind of like, okay, let's slow it down a little bit. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's why I'm thinking it, and here's how I think that might solve what you got going on. And try to keep. And usually they walk away feeling much less anxiety about the situation. So
that's what it's all about: solving
yeah,
problems and making win-win situations. I've said this on the last 3 episodes: is that you've got to enjoy helping people. Like, you've got to create a business around
sure,
problem solving and making win-win situations, because like if you're just doing this to take advantage of people, like you're gonna eventually get a bad rep, or it's gonna come
yeah,
back to you. I don't think that you can do bad business long term. So
yeah.
definitely got to get in it to help people, and that fills up your cup just as much. So how can people get a hold of you to talk to you about it?
Yeah, man, the website's kitsaphomepro.com. Kitsap's the county that I live in. It's KITSAP homepro.com. That's an easy one. You can find me quick that way. And then through social media, Instagram, the Jeremy Schooler, Jeremy Schooler on Facebook, those kinds of things. You can find me there too. So.
I love it, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this. Thank you for being such a go-giver. Man, I look forward to doing some business with you and hanging out and meeting you in person and stuff like that. So, man, thank you again for being on.
Right on, Wyatt. Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Hey guys, if you heard anything that you liked about this, man, I would love for you guys to like, share, comment, review, do whatever you can do with the platform that you're listening to this on. And if you heard something that you were like, man, I'd really like to learn more about this or get into real estate, but I just don't know what to do or the first steps to take, just go to ascendyoursuccess.com, fill out that application, and I look at every single application and you talk directly to me. And if we can or we can't work together, I'll talk to you on the next one. So.